Anyway, Knuckles, this is your interview. Like you're interviewing us, really.
Yes, I suppose it is.
Are you starting it off?
No, that was a cue for you to start off.
I love how we just keep doing it. Are we not doing the whole welcome to another episode of Un-Trainable?
You're not going to do your walk in with your beer this time instead of your coffee?
Oh yeah,
No.
you have to do that.
No, I don't.
Yeah. And can you pour yourself a little more beer?
That's all of it.
There's another 2 bottles.
Oh, I could open another bottle, can I?
Yeah.
Oh,
All
that's
right.
shame.
Oh. You know what you should do? Start.
Twisted
Yeah.
your arm.
Let's start it
We'll be
with
back
you
in a minute.
pouring, topping up your glass. That's a good start.
That
for the
is a good
podcast.
start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're podcasting.
Now we're
Well,
podcasting.
someone is.
I prefer this. It's normally coffee, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
A little bit, although I'm the only one with a beer.
You are.
I'm podcasting.
Cezza needs a wine.
Keza drank all the wine.
Drank all
it's
the wine.
gone.
It wasn't just me. Come on now.
Oh,
It's not fair.
welcome to the show, wife.
Thanks, husband.
That's the most awkward
That's
smile I've ever seen.
What, from me or Tom?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, my wife's agreed to come on the show. We had this equipment. She was here. She's sharing the house with me and Knuckles at the moment. Oh my
I'm
god, Knuckles is
guesting.
here. Knuckles is here.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we should have led with that.
I flew down
Knuckles
just
has
this
come
episode
down from Bangalore.
from Bangalore.
Yeah, to be fair, we planned on doing a lot of podcasting this trip, although I didn't really know you were coming.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Tom
We've
didn't
done
know.
absolutely nothing, and you're about to leave.
Yeah, we
So
planned
in
at
desperation, we said, Ceri, will you please do a podcast with us?
That is no lie.
we had at least 2 podcasts that were meant to happen when I got here in June. We haven't done either of those yet, but we got Kez on. Kez has been willing to come on, and
Well, no, I have. I was just taken a bit by surprise.
To be fair, you
Earlier
might
today.
spot the baby monitor there. She's literally put the baby to bed, and we've gone, sit down.
she's on call, and we've got about an hour to ask her some interesting questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
well
I will
past-
be ready for bed.
well past bedtime. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always planned on having Ceri on, didn't we, when we started this thing?
Yeah, we did want to get her on. We were just trying to
Whenever
figure
we
out
started this thing.
like where we wanted to go with it. Was it asking you questions about what it's like being married to a
Arsehole.
coach and a podcaster?
But you've decided the safer questions would be
Yes.
surrounding pregnancy and fitness
Yes,
instead.
the less frustrating answers will probably be.
I mean, we can do an intervention sort of thing if you like. We can do a therapy session. I don't know.
On me or you?
Well,
I reckon the last person to run any therapy
Let's
session
let
is me.
we'll do the therapy session, and we'll let the viewers decide
Who needs it more?
who needs it more, who's right.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
So what we did decide on was talking to Cezza about basically fitness leading up to pregnancy, post-pregnancy, with an almost 2-year-old, what her training currently looks like, and basically what advice she has for young mums out there.
Exactly. Yeah, you might know, listeners, we've got a baby. She's not a baby anymore. She's 2, nearly. That's happened extremely quickly. But yeah, I think having coached plenty of women who have had babies, I'm acutely aware of the side effects when it comes to.
Is that the term you want to use?
Yeah, it's not. It just fell out of my face. I had 1 sip of beer, and I said side effects. No, just how difficult it can be. Firstly, carrying life, passing it, and then dealing with the actual side effects that do come physically afterwards. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and it's a big one. Like half of all gym goers, let's say, carry the potential to birth life. There's plenty of people. I've coached a lot of them. And we've got one right here who can talk to us about it. So why wouldn't we?
take
force her
advantage.
to answer our questions under duress.
Yeah, I think the main thing for us was that Cezza had you, and you're big on.
She cheated. Yeah.
Do you not follow the program?
No, I mean, she cheated because she's got me.
But yeah, pretty
most
much,
women
yeah.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not-
you're big on.
She didn't pay me a goddamn thing either.
I didn't, but I did carry and birth your child.
Yeah.
You just admitted that.
Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, well.
So do we kick this off with starting from like early stages of pregnancy? What your training looked like, say 3-4 months into it, and then maybe how it changed as you got closer to the due date, if you continued staying more or less just as active and just reduce the intensity maybe,
Yeah.
or if it changed drastically from the early stages to the later stages of the pregnancy.
No, that's dumb. Let's start with before you were pregnant.
Okay.
What
Makes
was
a lot
your
of
level
sense,
of-
right?
Yeah.
What was
Okay.
your training like in the first place?
More intense than it is now, I'd say. More frequent, anyway. About four or 5 times a week. I think I was heading to the gym, mainly weight training, doing a little bit of sort of time on the bike, I guess. I hadn't really. Running is something that I'm more into now than I think before I'd had Lyra, and I think that's a big part of you influencing and inspiring me on that.
Sorry about that.
It's dreadful. Yeah, why did you do that to me? But to be honest, I think before we found out we were pregnant, there wasn't really. I didn't have many physical side effects, so it training sort of carried on the same. And then about 7 or 8 weeks in, it really started to take its toll. So I used to get up at 6, get in. We're very fortunate that we've got easy access to gym equipment at home. And with working from home 8 till 5 at the time, having that here was invaluable to me. So I was up at 6, straight to do my workout pretty much, jump in the shower, start work, have a long day. But those early mornings then started to be unfeasible. And I was finding when I was training, I was being sick and I was just in a really rough way. So we sort of backed off on that in the first trimester, certainly took it easy. And then it's like week 13, week 14, you just become a new woman. Well, it's like not being pregnant again almost. You feel like you've got your vitality back. You can do stuff. And I was back in the gym with enthusiasm. I was loving it, the confidence it gives you. The confidence I had already going to the gym is insane. But when you've got a baby growing inside of you and you don't see it on social media, you don't see pregnant women lifting heavy weights.
No, because they
in a
get
safe
criticised.
way. They get
Yeah.
criticised, exactly. It's frowned upon. You're going to endanger the baby. And that, as we know, that's just not true. So I felt really empowered by the fact that I was still able to do it whilst growing a baby. So the second trimester was great. It's the best one.
Breeze.
Ask anybody. It's the best one.
I tell all my pregnant clients to get to be smug about it.
So smug.
Just be smug. Like you deserve to be
You
smug.
deserve to be
Like you're
smug.
pregnant, you're still doing way more than most people.
Yeah, well, exactly. It probably maybe reduced to maybe 3 to 4 times a week. Probably one session, slightly less. And then as I was getting bigger and bigger, the last trimester, it started to become a bit trickier. Certainly, I'm very lucky to have you to help me through that training. But priorities had shifted. It wasn't trying to get stronger and stronger every week. It was just moving every week and doing what felt comfortable. If something didn't feel right, we didn't do it. We adapted. And I think I trained, I was thinking about this earlier. I trained up until about 32 weeks. And Lyra was born at 41 plus 2. So I did have a good stint there where I wasn't in the garage, but we had a terrible heat wave around the time I was at 32 weeks. And at that point, I was prioritizing sleep. So I was not up early to get my workouts in. I was sleeping and then I was trying to do some exercise in my lunch hour. So it was, just slotting that in where I could. but it got hot, and it just became, I just thought, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. I'm so uncomfortable. And also I just didn't feel well doing it in that heat. You know, it's different when you're not carrying a baby. You know, if you feel a little dizzy, obviously you should stop. But we all know we sometimes push through when we're feeling like that. But when you've got a baby, you don't take that chance. So it just didn't become, for me, it just didn't work anymore. So I stopped, but I didn't stop exercise. I was still out every day walking those dogs. In the mornings, I suppose. I was getting up to walk then because it was hot in the day. But yeah, I was still walking, and you know, we live on the top of a hill, don't we? Quite a steep hill. And I was trying my best to do that a couple of times a week, just so that I was pushing myself rather than just walking completely on flat ground. So at least I was pushing my cardiovascular a bit, but not to anything that I knew I couldn't handle, you know?
Yeah. And that kind of drop off towards the end, like, it's just natural, isn't it? I think some women get a little bit neurotic about it. I think they go, when should I stop doing this? When should I stop doing that? Like, is it safe? I always tell them, like, you'll just get to a point and you'll just know that something isn't, you know, it'll reach a threshold of not being comfortable enough for you right now. And, you know, that might be physically uncomfortable or mentally uncomfortable. You might just be like a certain amount of unsure about something. And I think when you're pregnant, if you weren't, I'd say, well, the unsureness is definitely not a reason to stop doing something. Like, push through. Come on, let's build some mental resilience here, for Christ's sake. But I think when there's life at stake, it just becomes obvious. You just go by feel the whole way, and you naturally get this drop off in training intensity, but frequency and the amount you're doing as well. And yeah, it's always fine.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because everybody wants to know when should I stop? When is it unsafe? But everybody is different. You know, I know somebody who was still weight training at 35 weeks and then she stopped. And then I've seen somebody else who was deadlifting PBs like 2 weeks before they had the baby. So everybody is different. And you've absolutely just got to go by how you feel.
Yeah.
Trust your body. Like, you've got to trust your body to grow the baby, to get you through labour. You've got to trust it in this respect as well.
Yeah. There's some research on like pregnant athletes, and all of it shows that they can continue training at that kind of intensity for quite a long time. Like, we see it, don't we? There are, like we say, there's not much on social media, and there isn't, but there are certain examples, like Tia Claire Toomey. Do you remember when she was pregnant?
She was insane.
The first gym we started at, there used to be this, I can't remember her name now, who used to run the CrossFit box.
Yes,
She was very heavily pregnant.
Was she on Wonder Woman? Was she
the one on there?
Yes.
Yeah. So she was very heavily pregnant, and she was still coming in and training and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Doing clean and jerks, just a monster. She was stronger than I'll ever be in trimester 3. Yeah.
But that's the thing.
Well, I can't remember her name. Like, if you were asking me yesterday, I would know her name. But now there's a microphone there, I can't. But yeah, there's another woman I've seen.
There was Cara Saunders
doing triples at 180 back squats, and this was weeks before. Yeah. And it's just because this was like her 8th child or something. She was well used to it. And she just kept that intensity the same. She hadn't ramped it up dramatically from inception. That would be a mistake, and women shouldn't, get pregnant and then think, oh, health and fitness is now a priority, I'm going to do everything. That would be an error, probably. Like in the last few months, I took on a client who was starting training and she was already into her 2nd trimester. And we did have to take it very easy. Like, we didn't add much at all, and the intensity I did keep quite low because I wasn't certain that it was going to be okay, because she hadn't done anything before. She was coming off a period of like a year of inactivity, so it would have been a mistake. But yeah, you can keep going pretty hard.
And then I think the other mistake that a lot of people make is, I'm pregnant, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, I think it's hard.
I mean, that's a bit harsh, but I think it's easy to think, well, it's going to be harder now, and
Yeah.
also use, I guess, the lack of knowledge, even though there are people to reach out to and get that information. In some ways, it's easier to just say, I'm not going to do anything.
I think it's like
you could definitely use it as a...
You could use it, isn't it? Well, it's
excuse.
the same thing as like,
sure-
oh, I'm
sure
eating
people
for
don't.
2. You're not eating for 2. You're eating for 1. You're like, no, you can't say that.
1.1.
Exactly.
It's like most things, like we keep talking about, like you scaling it relative to how you feel.
Yeah.
So that's quite a simplistic approach to it. But if you don't have access to someone who is properly qualified, your pre and postnatal qualifications, or someone who can't give you advice, that would be a simple approach. Like scale it relative to how you feel. But what you're talking about when you're starting, when you are pregnant or early stages, it's physical stress. So just think about being sensible with the kind of physical stress you're subjecting your body to for the first time. And it always comes back to the previous thing we talked about in all the other episodes, which is the use it or lose it. So saying, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm not going to do anything, you're just going to start to get weaker and potentially unhealthy, which is not doing the baby any favors. So even if you're just working on maintenance, that'll get you through the whole pregnancy, all right?
Yeah. Every piece of research out there on prenatal is, it's not harmful to the mother.
No.
It's not harmful to the baby. It's beneficial to the mother. It's beneficial to the baby. And that's like, for me, that's all the boxes ticked. Like,
And it's the same thing we talk about every time, which is just be sensible with prescription.
yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Don't do T-Eclair to me, ring muscle ups. Like, there are certain things that I will say, like, at a point, I'm probably not going to do that anymore. Like, step ups is probably one of them. And it's literally just because we're, like, elevating the human, like, above the ground by a meter or so. It's...
In terms of safety,
in terms of safety, and it's not like the exercise is bad, it's that there's potential for an accident there, and the potential for injury falling from a meter off the ground versus on the ground is much higher.
And also when we talk about those kind of athletes, those elite athletes, and they definitely have access to like top level coaches who can advise them on these things. So what they're doing is in a certain context and under the watchful eye of someone, but what we're saying is, don't see what they're doing and just try and copy it. Keep it simple, and like, I mean, there's plenty you can do with simple movements while keeping risks to minimum.
Yeah, if you really are like scared about it, you can take the risks down to nil quite easily.
Like instead of
Just
a
do
step
some
up, go on
machines.
go on a leg extension machine.
Yeah,
You're sorted.
it's all good. Yeah. Do you think like segueing awfully? Do you think? Because one of the things we see reported, and I'm not sure how deeply researched it is, but comments are made often that it makes literally birthing easier, like the birthing process. Obviously, you have nothing to compare it to. You can birth one time. Do you think that it probably helped, or do you think?
Undoubtedly, it helped. Yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't say absolutely it helped, because there are other factors at play. It's never going to be just that. But yeah, I think it did.
It was my encouragement.
I couldn't have gotten through it without you.
There we go, that's nice, isn't it? Yeah. Dad of the year.
Husband of the year too.
Oh.
No, I
She's
couldn't
not
have
like
got.
that. I'm going to do more podcasts with my wife.
I couldn't have gotten through it without you. But also, I did a lot of it myself.
You did a lot of it. Yeah. You did 60%. I did about 40%.
So I was in labour for just over 11 hours.
Nice.
Technically.
Nice.
Sounds fun.
Technically, right? So Lyra
It's about
was,
your flight from Bangalore. Which
Yeah,
do you
but
think was
he slept most of the
less
way.
comfortable?
So did he.
But you were in business
Your
class.
labor.
He did drop off, but to be fair, it was overnight. We were in the hospital at 10 p.m. and she wasn't born until 9 a.m. the following morning. So I
Oh,
mean,
man.
it was
It was hard
all
for
night.
me.
It was hard for you.
I was tired, man.
You were sitting on a giant sofa, dropping off to sleep. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. What was I going to say?
Do
It
you
was
think it helped?
relevant. Yeah, but I was going to talk about something else. Yes, so technically I was in labour for 11 hours and 15 minutes. However, so she was born Friday morning, but from the Monday night, I was having irregular contractions, wasn't I? And they were coming at least every 10 minutes. So that was all day and all night. So by the time we actually went to hospital, I was shattered, wasn't I? So I was falling asleep during labour between contractions for like 30 seconds. Just falling asleep, holding the gas and air in the pool, and then waking up for the next contraction. But I think having done physical exercise to, you know, as long as I possibly could, I think I probably stopped walking the dogs when those contractions started happening, because I was just completely exhausted, and you don't want to be, you know, what would now be a 10-minute walk, but at the time was a 20-minute walk away. You don't want to be that far away from the house when you realise you are in active labour. But I think having done exercise, for as long as I could, and that exposure to at least a moderate, sensible level of exertion undoubtedly helped me through. Not just being able, trusting my body to do what it needed to do to give birth, but just being able to have the energy to physically be able to do it, to deal, because they say it is a marathon, and it really is. Some people go into labour for way longer than that. Some women are way less, but it's still incredibly intense.
I did an ultramarathon last year, and it was 7 hours 45.
Well, there we go. Yeah.
And so it like far and away exceeds that. And it's not just that it takes a long time, it is a big effort, and you've got these crazy muscle contractions going on the whole time. Like you said, you were having contractions for days before. You're absolutely exhausted. Not only that, but when you get to the end of it, you have to put in the biggest effort. It's like it would be like me having to do a flat out 400-meter sprint at the end of my ultra. Not to keep talking about my ultra and how impressive I am.
Should we go into the timing of your ultra marathon?
Let's not talk about the timing of my ultra marathon. It was perfect for me. Yeah. You got something to say?
No, we decided that wasn't going to be in the topic.
Yeah, and like I personally think it helped because that suits my bias very, very well. But yeah, I do remember one moment where I think it kind of helped in a way I didn't really expect. Obviously I was very sleepy the whole night, had a few naps. But when, it got to crunch time and one of the midwives just goes something like, oh, here we go. Do you know what I mean? Like, they basically alert you to the fact that it's happening, and it could be in the next 10 minutes, but it's happening right fucking now. And you go into push mode. And anyway, but towards the end of that little period where we were about to meet Lyra, they were kind of trying to coach you through it. And, the messages were things like push, but they were kind of like going, oh, not like that. And you may not remember this because you're in an absolute whirlwind. But they were essentially telling you that you weren't quite pushing right, and you were getting it slightly wrong. And no, it's got to be this way of pushing. And basically, obviously, I'm a genius coach, so I immediately threw out the cue like you're about to do a heavy squat, because I think what they were trying to tell you was kind of push from up here, and it's like Valsalva, if you know it, guys. But basically, you would take a kind of a big breath into your stomach and then kind of crunch everything down and push. You wouldn't push down for a squat, you'd shit your pants. But but that's what they were trying to get you to do. And I said, like you're about to do a really heavy squat. And I hope she just flew out.
Do you know what? Until you just said about it, I'd completely forgotten. And because I remember, because I was in a lot of pain, and in hindsight, I get what they were trying to tell me, and what they were trying to get me to do was absolutely correct, but it wasn't engaging with my brain and my way of thinking. So you saying that, it just flipped a switch, and I was just like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that's exactly what I started to do.
What are we talking about queuing? It has to be something the individual can relate to.
Basically, I just bumped myself up to 45% for credit. You're down to 55.
What are they called? The medical staff who help with
midwives.
You'll be outsourced.
Yeah.
For queuing the birthing process.
Yeah, I might coach the midwives. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do like seminars and stuff. This is how to push, guys. This is how to coach pushing.
That wouldn't have worked for everybody.
No, that's the thing about queuing, right? It's got to be unique. So, but
exactly, yeah.
that would be part of my
Stick to the individual.
PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why
Can
we
you think of a
can't?
new Instagram handle for me as well? That's right.
You can add that to your profile.
Pushing PT.
So if it, obviously you're making what's birthing PT.
Sorry, viewers.
I missed that completely.
Don't worry. It's better that you don't hear it, to be honest.
No, I was going to say, but we can't.
Cut that. What's that?
Yeah.
For any Sunny fans out there?
Yeah. What are they called? Sunny fans?
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I'm a creeper.
A creeper.
I'm a creeper
Yeah.
because I watch them.
Yeah, let's get off this topic. No one will get
It's
it.
Always Sunny.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a podcast,
Have they?
and they call so they do their videos come up on Spotify.
Okay.
So they have the listeners and the creepers. So the creepers are the ones that watch them when they talk. I'm a creeper.
So if you're on YouTube, guys,
You're creepers.
Yeah.
You're a creeper.
Bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah,
creeps.
yeah. But there's a lot of cut that. But it still gets in. But
You
this
got
is
me to those.
you had a question, Knuckles, I think, about 5 minutes ago.
I did have a question.
He's forgotten
No, but it's to do with, like you said, like what Tom said, is the training through it, how it kind of prepared you for the birthing process. But I guess a follow-up is, well, we still can't definitely say, yes, it was the training. How long after having Lyra did you kind of get back to physical activity or training, and how did that feel going back into it?
It was a good couple of months. You're kind of given, I don't know if this is TMI, you might want to cut this out, but you're kind of given the advice that you shouldn't engage in anything until you stop bleeding from your recovery.
Yeah.
So I absolutely followed that, but I wouldn't have been able to do it, I don't think, in that time anyway. It was absolutely shattered.
Did you reintroduce like any form of like physical activity, that's going for a walk with the
Going
dogs
for a
and
walk,
stuff
yeah,
like that?
we were really pleased that we were out. I think on day 3, I think we were out for a walk with Lyra, and I'm incredibly fortunate with my recovery. You know, I didn't have a C-section. I don't want to go too intimate, but I was very lucky with what I was recovering from. So my limitations weren't anywhere near what they would have been for other people. So I was very fortunate in that. So I was out quite early, doing walks, absolutely. And to be honest, walking was the biggest thing that I did in the early stages. It was getting out for a walk with the dogs, or even just with Lyra. It helps when you're going through a lot of change and dealing with a baby at that time. You kind of need to be able to go outside. But doing the walks, getting the fresh air, just building that back up again. I can't remember exactly how old she was when I started going back in. I was keen to get in as early as possible, but I don't necessarily think that was the right mindset, only in that I'd put the pressure on myself, and then when I wasn't meeting my own expectations, it would leave me feeling low. And Lyra was exclusively breastfed, so that came with its own challenges of being apart from her. She didn't like to sleep in the car seat. She didn't like to sleep in the pram, so trying to take her to the gym was absolutely not an option. I'd say it was probably in the winter when I remember getting out in the home gym, and I tried to take Lyra with me, and she just hated it. She just screamed and screamed, and I thought I'd done the right thing. I'd wrapped her up all like in a nice cozy snow suit, a pram suit, and I'd put her activity gym on the floor for her to play with, and she just hated it. But she loved to be held, didn't she, when she was young? She didn't want to be down. She just wasn't interested in it, and it just wasn't worth the stress on me. But as her sleep became more predictable, it's easier to plan it. And I'm very fortunate, and I don't think I represent many people because I have you, not only with your knowledge but with your availability. There's so many people that dad is gone all day and there isn't anyone to watch the baby while you go off to the gym. You are able to come home for a little bit during your day, and we tried to take advantage of that as much as we could. And that gave me the opportunity, even if it was just to sit on the bike for 15 to 20 minutes. It was just something, getting it in there.
Was there any of the Diastasis Recti? There was. So I think that's something which is quite common after childbirth. So I guess, Tom, the question directed to you is, how would you approach, or how should someone approach kind of training around that or addressing that?
So if a listener doesn't know, DR is just separation of the abs. You probably know, because it is such a commonly spoken about thing. If you know someone who's pregnant, they've probably mentioned it at some point.
I think it's only, just as a side note, only if you're in fitness.
But yeah, that might be true.
A lot of my friends that aren't particularly, they're physically active, but they're not necessarily following in like Instagram influencers or anybody really in fitness. They just go and they do what they want to do. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They've never heard of it before.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting.
So I'd said about the fact that I'd experienced coning when I was pregnant with certain exercises, but to you, and we'd adapted, and how I was still experiencing that after. And some of my friends were like, "What? What is that?"
Can we actually expand on that? Like what coning is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of related, I suppose, and in Ceri's situation, it's definitely related. So back to Diastasis Recti, if you can imagine, if you just picture a really shredded woman or something, you have two columns of abs, if you like. If you imagine, as you progress through pregnancy, the belly gets bigger and bigger and rounder. Those two columns can get kind of pushed apart, and the tissue between can get stretched, and that's basically it. And essentially, the more it gets stretched, I suppose it can get a little bit thinner. And then if you kind of put any kind of pressure through your abdominal wall from obviously the inside, like outward pressure through, it can come through external loading, so resistance training, lifting weights in the gym, or the breathing movement that we spoke about when Ceri was giving birth earlier, taking like a big breath in and holding loads of like intra-abdominal pressure. You can get like a bulging out, and really that probably is something to avoid. I don't think you want too much, but yeah, it's DR in itself is extremely common. I'd say most women get it, but I think that fact in itself is evidence that it's not really something that people need to worry about too much. It's obviously an aesthetic change to get used to. I'm sure you've experienced that. It's like, I imagine it feels quite strange, and you see yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh no, I've changed. But there's lots of things that have changed about you now. You've given birth. You have a baby, and hopefully those pros do outweigh the cons. As long as your DR isn't like accompanied by some kind of significant pain that is altering the way you live your life, or some kind of loss in function around the area. So as long as you don't literally lose use of your abs, which you absolutely shouldn't, it's fine. And on kind of the flip side of that, like exercise, I think can probably help a little bit, but there's actually no evidence to show that there's any particular exercise that will help bring those abs back together again. It's some women's abs will recover and become more closely knit again, and some women's won't, and that's the end of it. It really is just something, I know it's easy for me to say because it's never going to happen to me. It's something to get used to. If it's something you need to train around, train as hard as you can in the context of the position you're in, and that's the same for everyone on this planet.
Yeah, I guess my follow-up to that would be, like we're talking about how it looks almost, but is DR accompanied by like a weakening of the abdominal muscles? So how would you address kind of like, I think because you've posted about it recently on social media where most people are just sticking to static work, isometrics when it comes to strengthening the abdominals. So someone with DR, would you still advise doing more dynamic work? Again, obviously scaled to their current comfort and ability, but is that something you would advise?
I've never seen, like, I've never noticed in clients I've trained, like a relationship between more DR and less like function. So I don't think it's particularly relevant.
Okay.
I think obviously post-pregnancy the core is going to be weaker. It's just been stretched into oblivion, and you've not really been using it that much. Like, you're not going to be doing, thousands of reps of sit-ups in trimester 3. It would be foolish if you did that. The baby would come out flat. That's not science, by the way, guys. That's not science.
You don't.
It's not. But it's really individual. Like I think you just alluded to. You already know the answer. You take the person as they come. It's highly individual. The state a woman is going to come out of the end of pregnancy, trying to resume training. My post the other day for reference, maybe I'll pop it up on screen, was just saying that everyone's doing these bloody isometric core exercises, and it's the only muscle group in the body we train that way. It's ridiculous. Everyone's doing planks. Can we please move them? Like, sit-ups got...
and it's like, even if you're doing isometrics, like if you do an isometric for any other body part, the intensity that you're doing it with, and then you go and do a plank, which is like you're
lying on the floor. You're lying on the floor.
Yeah.
But it's a good starting point for some people. So
it is.
That's where I was kind of going with that.
Yeah.
Some women and some people come to you in a position where that's the right choice. Like, we need the intensity to be really low, and a low level isometric is probably the right place to start. And I've certainly had postpartum women come to me and do that. And it's normally a good point to start regardless, just to kind of see how things are. But yeah, they're almost always progressed into actual core movements.
Yeah. But if you're someone who's trained actively, regularly before pregnancy, through the early stages, leading up to the late stage of pregnancy, post-pregnancy, your baseline is still going to be higher than someone who hasn't trained. So it's still a good idea to continue, or at least start training during the early stages.
Yeah. Interestingly, this is not interesting, by the way, even though I just started that sentence with interestingly. The advice I see loads of with regards to diastasis recti is to train the TVA, which is like a wraparound muscle. The fibers run kind of sideways.
Yeah.
And you could almost imagine it as like a corset. If you had a corset on, that's what that muscle looks like. People always say, to get rid of DR, you've got to train the TVA. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you imagine those fibers that I just described, they're pulling the actual way of
it's not going to tighten it up like a corset, is it? It's not going to bring everything back in.
Yeah. And they say avoid ab training, which is nonsense.
So
anyway,
that was the reason why I brought it up, is that like, we're still trying to tell you the message of train, whether you're at a starting point where you need isometrics, or whether you're ready to progress to more dynamic stuff, but train. Like, you need to train, you need to exercise, you need to strengthen the muscles, so you build everything back up post childbirth.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
I think the important thing is building everything back up,
Yeah.
because it's, for a lot of women, it's going to be, your stomach has taken the battering mainly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of focus on trying to do the core work for that, but you're trying to build everything back up.
Yeah, like
and
the
you
pelvic
can't-
floor, like the pelvic floor muscles.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so many women lose bladder control after pushing a baby out, and like, there's a lot that needs to be done, and it goes far beyond just aesthetics. I know that the aesthetic side of thing is hard post childbirth, but there's so much more you need to be doing beyond just that.
But yeah, you're right. You need to be training, and at the same time, you need to meet yourself wherever you're at, like whatever kind of state. Although that's a pretty insensitive way of putting it. Whatever kind of state you are in when you decide to resume training,
Whatever
you need to
stage of
meet
your
yourself
recovery
there.
you're
That's a better way.
Yes,
we need to
thank
get you on, Ross. I've now had 3 sips of beer.
I should just be your editor with a
Yeah, don't say that.
teleprompter.
Cut that. Yeah, you need to meet yourself wherever you're at, But at the same time, you still need to make that exercise challenging for where you're at, the stage of recovery that you're in. It still needs to be challenging, because if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Oh, things shit PTs say.
Oh, is that the cheesy line for today's podcast?
Things, yeah. What is there a cheesy line in all our podcasts?
2 you've done.
2?
Well, what are
Yeah.
the cheesy lines?
Oh God, I can't remember what they are
Well,
now.
Pete, no, there was 2.
But I know there was 2. Yeah. Because
Very
I commented
specific.
on one of them on Spotify and said that is the cheesiest thing Tom's ever said.
Yeah,
Did you? I
don't
think that might be the only
Mm.
comment we've got on Spotify.
It is the only comment we've got on Spotify.
I'm gonna have to find it, aren't I?
Pull your fingers out, viewers.
Even if all you do is just comment with more.
Just a middle
3
finger.
Cheesy
listeners.
things.
Yeah. Mhm. You're not supposed to pull your phone out, by the way. I know this is your first podcast.
Warriors pick up wounds.
Oh, Warriors pick up wounds.
Oh, Jesus.
That was
I
it.
remember that one.
Yeah, that was
I
one
know
of
that's
them.
a bit cheesy. I said it at the time.
You did.
It's the same here, isn't
Women
it?
are warriors.
Women are warriors.
Women are
right?
warriors.
And DR is a wound. You've picked it. Be proud of it. God damn it. That's my view, anyway.
Nice.
I do know it's cheesy. Knuckles, you had more questions, mate.
Oh, I just want to talk about recovery. Only to give the listeners context, I've been here almost 2 weeks now, and for most of those 2 weeks, little Lyra has been quite unwell. And I've seen what Tom and Cezza's, well, mainly Cezza's, sleep looks like. So we were just talking the other day about what her recovery is like, because Tom and I keep banging on about the 2 main things you need for recovery is sleep and nutrition. And I know you guys have the nutrition aspect covered, but more of how are you dealing with the lack of sleep, and how does Tom adapt the sessions based on your sleep cycle or lack thereof?
Do you want to answer first, or shall I?
If you moan at me about poor sleep, I'll make you do more. Usually.
That is not the case. You're actually really supportive.
I don't want them to know that.
I thought you enjoyed it when I complimented you.
Mm.
Yeah. It's you just got to take every day as it comes. What you've seen, like I said to you earlier, what you've seen these past 2 weeks is not our norm. Lyra normally sleeps through, and the last couple of months I've been really good with consistency, haven't I? And last week I'd done 2 5K PRs. I was getting back to, I'd lifted heavier than I have done since I had Lyra. So, and that was last week before she got ill, and now here we are. And I haven't exercised in days, but it's very much just how you feel. You've got to cope by how you feel, and it's so hard because you get in your own head and you beat yourself up and you see what other people are doing. Some people recover faster than others. Some babies sleep, some don't. Some mums need less sleep, some need more sleep. You just can't. There's no blanket answer that works for everybody. I think until I was about 15 months old, I didn't really feel like I was getting back into the swing of things properly. And I think that's twofold. She's older, so her routine is a lot more predictable. But also I started back to work, so she was good. She started nursery, which meant that I had, I was back at work, and I'm very fortunate to have a flexible boss. So I was able to, and I still do it now. Lyra gets dropped off at 7:30 at nursery. I come home, I train for about 40 minutes. Is what you've done for my sessions, isn't it? 40 to 45 minutes.
It's enough.
So it's enough to get it done, have a shower, and then jump on, looking slightly bedraggled, but there we are. Priorities are getting it done.
Gasping. Bike intervals.
Oh, bike intervals at 8:30 in the morning is not the one, let me tell you. But yeah, there were definitely days when, right, I'm gonna do this today. I'm gonna get in the garage. I'm gonna do a good workout. and it just doesn't pan out for one reason or another. Lyra's had a terrible night's sleep, or she wakes up early from a nap, and like I said, she's exclusively breastfeeding, so that was its whole other problem. Did I say is?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So she was
think she's
exclusively
still-
breastfeeding. No, she
she's
hasn't been for a year now. She was exclusively breastfeeding, so if she woke up hungry, that's kind of it. My session, as far as I was concerned, was done, because I could never feed her and then just leave her. That was going to cause many, many tears. And I think there were definitely days when I was hard on myself. There were days when I forced myself to go in, and I came back and I didn't feel good about the fact that I'd done it, because the session just felt rubbish, because I hadn't had enough sleep. It's incredibly difficult to adapt around it, because before having a baby, you're so used to, right, this is what my routine looks like, this is when I want to train, this is what I want to do, these are my goals, and you just go and do it. Apart from work pressures, and you might have other family commitments, whatever, but largely you're an independent person. You can do what you want when you want to do it. That gets completely stripped away, and it's difficult to wrap your head around that when fitness is such a big part of your life. And like I said, some babies will sit in the pram, will sit in a car seat. I know plenty of mums I'm in awe of them, but they take their babies to the gym with them, and their babies are happy. And but that, baby temperaments are different. So, and also some mums are just like, I'm doing it. Be damned. I'm doing it. Tough. And I got a huge amount of respect for them, because sometimes we weren't even out the house by 10, 11 o'clock, lucky to see us dressed.
Those were good days.
Those were the good days.
5:30 these days. Crying.
Yeah, but that's not because of Lyra. That's
No, just life.
Yeah.
So my follow-up to that, I guess, is the other thing which is a challenge is you obviously have a full-time job. Then there's the baby, Lyra, and then Tom shuttling in and out between clients and stuff like that. So for you, the question would be, how hard is it to make time to train? How often would you be able to do that? And then Tom, the question for you would be, what are you prioritizing? Like to keep the sessions kind of short and snappy and effective, like what we talk about all the time, the minimal dose. So what are some of your main priorities in those sessions?
Me first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found it quite difficult to get the time in to begin with in those early stages, like I said. But when she was getting into more of a routine, I think it was probably 2 or 3 times a week that we were trying to get a weight training session in. And still going out for walks pretty much every day. It certainly was difficult, but with Tom being able to come home made a big difference, didn't it? Even if all you did was watch the monitor while she slept.
Yeah.
And we're able to go and give her a cuddle if she woke up. Even just that was enough. There were times I tried to go in the garage when I was here by myself with her, but I didn't go particularly well. 10 minutes in and then she's awake.
But yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about your last 3-4 months. It's been good.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like it has clicked for you a little bit.
Well, we had at the start of the year, if you remember, we had about 2 months where Lyra was just back to back ill, not sleeping through the night. Yeah, and then it seemed to have.
But after that, it's the best it ever has been, which it probably should be, I suppose. Like, you've got more distance from her being 0 years old. Hopefully, it does get easier, but we know it's not like that really. It comes in peaks and troughs, doesn't it? But yeah, you found your flow a little bit now, and I think that is probably just a good point for women in general who are going to go through this, who are going through this. Sometimes it takes an enormous amount of time to get back to that point. There's so much that has changed. I don't think there is another life event that changes it this much, aside from, I don't know, being invaded by Russia. Who knows? It's never going to be this hard again. Physiologically, everything has changed. Mentally, everything has changed. Your brain chemistry has completely changed. your lifestyle and your life situation. Here she is. She's on the monitor crying. But yeah, I think in anyone's kind of air quotes fitness journey, it's important to have like, you know, reasonable expectations on, I suppose, what the outcome is going to be and how long that's going to take. So, you know, when you do have a baby, try not to expect things to happen in the short term, like, and you get back to air quotes normality, because most frequently that's not the way it happens. It takes a huge chunk of time, like 16, 17 months of time to get back to something that feels almost like normal, but still probably not quite. And yeah, and if it happens quicker than that, that's fantastic. But expectations are a huge thing. If you go into it thinking, you know, a couple of weeks' time I'm going to be fine, that's not going to happen. But the question was, what are we prioritizing now?
Lyra cuddles, potentially.
Yeah. Should we get her on?
No.
She's got a lot to say normally.
She does.
The realities of being a parent.
Exactly. There we go. Mum's there and everything is better now. But yeah, we'll continue for a little bit.
We can talk about the training aspect.
Exactly, yeah. We'll bore Ceri to tears then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think probably the biggest limiting factor now, or even in the beginning of Ceri's postnatal training, our limitation has probably been equipment more than anything else, like, which may not be what you expect, but Ceri trains in the garage, which is just over there. It's reasonably well kitted out, mainly because I had a heart attack when, not a real one, ladies and gents, but when the first lockdown was announced in 2020, we'd literally just moved in here. And when I heard I wasn't going to be able to touch a barbell again for the foreseeable future, I kind of seized up and I slipped and I fell onto my laptop.
So much kit delivered so quick.
I don't know. Yeah, my arms fell onto the keyboard. The Rogue website opened up, and the next thing I knew,
you picked up. What did you pick up during that time? It was 2 barbells.
It was. I have built it up over time.
Gradually.
I had a few squares of flooring to start with. I had a really old, horrific squat rack. It was the most awful thing I've ever used in my life.
Re-racking on that one was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. It would tip over, but it did the job in the short term. But I just got a few plates and a barbell in the beginning, and I had a couple of kettlebells. But I've built on that, in there now. There's there's a pull-up bar with some Olympic rings that come down it, so Ceri could do things like negative pull-ups and inverted rows, and ring push-ups and things like that. Got a bench and a better squat rack now. Uprights we've got. I've got a barbell, and I bought Ceri a barbell for Christmas one year, I think. It's like a pink 15 kilo Rogue one. It's nice. More plates. Well, I've got more kettlebells, but so it's well kitted out. It's way better than what I would say most people who train at home have. Yeah. But still, it's not. I'm used to programming for people who have access to full gyms, so there's not infinity things we can do with it. But there's more than enough, So we've got the barbell and the squat rack, so we are kind of focused on that side of things. Especially on the front end of the sessions. Ceri trains twice a week at the moment in the gym, and she runs twice a week. And then she's on the bike once, but that's just at the end of one of her sessions. So one of the sessions she starts with squats, the other one she starts with deadlifts, and then we move into some single leg stuff on both sessions, but different single leg stuff, and then some upper bodies. So they're both full bodies. They're both kind of like broad. We sprinkle in some core stuff. But we try and keep it to 45 minutes. I think Ceri said she's mostly done 40 minutes. A bike. We've got a bike erg in there as well, which is invaluable. But yeah, that's working at the moment. Yeah, it's an amount of exercise that feels achievable most of the time. Obviously, things do go pear-shaped a lot when you have a child. Sometimes they're just horrifically ill, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. Yeah. You have to look after them, and yeah, that affects both of us, and obviously it affects Ceri a bit more than me. But like nothing's going to replace the comfort of mum ever. And that, it's not, unfortunately. It's fortunately it's a privilege to be in that position, for me and for Ceri.
I guess for the listeners, what's also important to know is like both Tom and Cezza both mentioned that she's training, like her lifting sessions are approximately 40 minutes, and she's getting in twice a week. But if you're someone who can't afford 40 minutes, but maybe you can get to the gym a couple more times, even if your sessions are 20 minutes long, so you spread that same volume across 4 sessions, it's still feasible. Like it's still something you should be doing, like try and get in and lift.
Yeah. I mean, 2 20-minute sessions, if that really genuinely is your limit when it comes to timescales, it's still better to do that.
Yeah.
Like you have to be strict with what you were doing. It would like absolutely all have to be bang for your buck stuff.
Yeah.
You couldn't go in there and stretch for 10 and then lift for 10. That would be a waste of your incredibly valuable time at that point. But yeah, that's what we're focusing on. It's enough for at the moment, especially on the lifting side of things. She gets a little bit of cardio in the garage, and then 2 runs a week. It's working, but like Ceri said, it has taken a long time to get to that point.
Yeah.
And that's with my help, and contrary to popular belief, I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, she's doing awesome at the moment.
Lovely.
I'll say that now because she can't hear me.
We won't tell her you
If she was
said
here,
that.
I'd say, yeah, it's all right. Could do better.
Oy, oy.
She's back.
Bitch is back.
Oh, God.
Cezza just pretended to nip off because Lyra's crying, but she's just on a shot of coffee tequila,
Yeah.
and she's back now.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How is she?
She's okay. Warm. Just needed a mummy cuddle. Back to sleep.
Good. You thought of anything to say?
A little, yes.
Oh, little. Oh, goodness me. I mean, I think we're a good hour into this. I think what we should do is wrap it up with your general advice.
Funnily enough, that's what I was thinking about upstairs.
Oh, that's good.
Give yourself grace.
Who's
That
Grace?
would be... Thanks for ruining it. That would be my top thing. I think you put expectations on yourself, and there are pressures that you see, from the outside world. But every person is different, and it's okay. Like a bit like we were saying, I'm nearly 2 years post baby. It's taken me a long time to get here. That's okay. It's okay if it happens quicker. It's okay if it takes longer, but you will get back. You will get there. It's just going to take its own time for you, and give yourself grace if it doesn't happen as fast as you'd like. I saw something quite recently which I thought was a good way to just recalibrate your thinking a bit, and you shouldn't be looking at it like trying to get back to who you were before you had a baby. It's looking at it from what you've done since you had a baby. You've got a new body, and look what you've done in that short period of time after you've gone through something incredible. Your body's done an amazing thing, recovered from it, and now you're training and you're running, you're competing, you're doing whatever you're doing. It's incredible. The body is amazing, and you're doing amazing. Just give yourself some grace.
Yeah, quite right. It reminded me of something that I tell people relatively frequently. Like, I remember the concept. The concept is called the gap and the gain, but I forget who came up with it. It was in a book. I forget what the gap is, and I forget what the gain is. I've forgotten almost everything about the concept except for kind of what it means. And basically, it's about the importance of deciding where to measure from in your past. And if you always decide to measure yourself against your best, like in the past, you're going to be absolutely miserable about where you are presently. You should pick not yourself at your lowest, but it makes sense. Once you've given birth, it kind of is the lowest, isn't it? I can't think of another way to describe it. You should measure yourself from there and look at how much progress you've made from there. And it's the same for lots of different people. Let's say someone just falls off the training wagon and they go a year without doing any training at all. All their lifts have gone backwards. They can't run very well anymore. You should measure yourself from when you restart, not from the 1 second before you quit. And it's the same for people who become injured or they go through an operation. Don't measure yourself against what you were before. Measure yourself from your new starting point.
Yeah.
And just be every single step you should be proud of.
Absolutely.
On that note,
It is.
have the listeners heard of Un-Trainable, the program?
Oh my goodness. Ceri, are you on it?
Uh-huh.
She's not. She can't afford £1 a day.
It's because nursery fees, man. It's
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Do you know what I would pay for you but nursery fees?
I'm married to you.
Yeah, that's fair enough. A program for you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
Never
thanks, Cezza. Thanks for coming on.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, wife.
You're welcome. My overtired, rambling rubbish.
That's
You're
been very
welcome,
good. I think
everyone.
you've dropped some absolute nuggets in there. That has been the valuable chat I always knew it would be.
First time for everything.
It was a good chat. Yeah.
It was a good chat.
Good night.